Well, here we are. Wasn't really planning on coming on or doing anything. Is this working? Ah, here we are. 7th expansion. Spider Lily Translations. That's right, this is a fan-translated work. Please note that this product was made to be distributed within the country of Japan. Oh, I missed the rest of it. Oh, whatever. Right. It's a little bit loud, to be fair. Basically, I'm feeling a little bit annoyed at the moment. I had plans to do some work tonight, and they have fallen through. So because I can't do that, I thought, you know what, I might as well just do something. So I've decided to look into this visual novel, Higanbana no Saku Yoru ni, from Ryukushi 7, which is localized rather as The Unforgiving Flowers Blossom in the Dead of Night. Like I said, from Ryukushi 7, the author of Higurashi no Naku Koro ni and Umineko no Naku Koro ni, as well as Kikonya, which I think was also Kikonya no Naku no Koro ni, but I can't remember. But very popular anime and visual novel series. That is Higurashi. Umineko, very good visual novel and a not very good anime adaptation, which gave up halfway through anyway. And we have yet to see what's happening with Kikonya. But this is another work he's done, Higanbana. And as I've understood, what I've heard is that this is also quite a bit darker than his usual work. And those works are pretty dark in general. So without further ado, let's get into this, shall we? Now, I'm not going to do a lot of this because I think I would like to invite Ash to do more of this as well. He'd probably like this. He's always talking about wanting to find a visual novel that is like Umineko. This is probably the closest thing he's going to get. So, I think this will be more like Higurashi, though. Without further ado, let's go. Chapter 1, Mesomeso-san. This story is decidedly a work of fiction. It has no relation with any current individuals, organizations, or events, or... I missed the last one. Now, with that, you already know that this is a Ryukushi 7 piece of work. Dodgy Photoshop filters over photographs, and that wind sound effect. That door sound effect. A man exits a bathroom stall and leaves a lone girl behind him. As for the girl's appearance, if described with a word, it was strange. She wore socks and indoor slippers. If we suppose this is a school, then there's nothing strange about that. On her back, she was wearing a red backpack. If we suppose this is a school, then there's nothing strange about that. And she was wearing a bra and panties. There was nothing strange about the girl wearing underwear in itself. However, for there to be a girl in her underwear in a bathroom stall, that was strange. For her to wear her backpack while in her underwear, that was strange. And for a girl and a man to be alone in a bathroom stall, that was strange. Even if we imagined what kind of unseemly things could have happened here, they couldn't have been described as anything but strange. As the echoes of the man's footsteps began to fade away, the girl remembered she was helplessly forgotten, alone in the former school building. As she sank to the floor, she began to shed her tears while sobbing Mesomeso, which I believe is a Japanese onomatopoeia for crying or sobbing. Addition of new elements, please check the tile screen. Of course. Now, I had done this before, so I'd already unlocked the glossary. Oh, this is loud. There are large numbers of students in this school. Girls make up half the crowd. And so perhaps it is no longer appropriate to keep calling the girl in our story the girl. Also, if we can tear into her privacy and dignity to satisfy our own curiosity, then her name can easily be revealed here as well. The girl's name is Marie Moria. I'm not even going to pretend to be able to read that, but I'm going to assume it's accurate to that. Marie Moria. Any hidden meanings from the kanji, I won't be able to discern. And something year student in the 8th class. I'm going to lower the volume, actually. I'm going to lower the volume because this is well loud. Let's see. Can barely hear myself think. Right, that'll do. And something? Yes, student. In the 8th class, she was a kind-hearted girl who worked as a member of the animal raising committee. Oh, this is one of those games when getting into full screen and out of full screen will be a pain. Her grades were average. She wasn't strong in any subject. PE was her weakest. It could have been said that she was even somewhat below average. Looking at her background, Marie has assumed many class managerial positions, such as committee member and team leader. Unfortunately, it's not as if she had any ambition to attain them. Rather, others forced the positions onto her, and she didn't have the strength to refuse them. There were times when she had thought of saying farewell to her weaker self. And yet, if she had been able to change herself by thought alone, no one would have had to suffer. And so, without love for herself, Marie headed down the dark alley called today. For how long had Marie been forced to do the things she didn't want to do? And what kind of shameless deeds was she being forced to do? As for that, there's no need to explain it in detail. Yeah, that's right. Use your imagination. I know you guys can think of something. The girl did things she didn't want to do and continued being humiliated. That's the simplest way to describe her current circumstances. How had she strayed into this sad fate? One might muse about the excuses for why she was so meager and worthless. She had no choice but to be like that. There was no other way. No way to refuse it. That it was always for the best. Nevertheless, these reasons didn't help her situation one bit. Wanting something in order to make up for one weakness is to invite another weakness. And payment to make up for that weakness again results in the search for another something to compensate. It seemed like an ant-lion pit, a spiral of malice without end. Already, many of Marie's weaknesses had been gripped by a man, and she couldn't put into words her refusal to do the many shameless things he asked of her. For Marie, she didn't have any friends she could ask for help with this kind of problem. She had family, but there wasn't anyone she could trust if she spoke her mind. There were 3 children in the Moria family, but Marie's sisters were far more talented. Since Marie was always on the bottom rung, even just by being alive day by day, she had her sister's superiority and her own incapabilities thrust upon her. Eventually, Marie became servile, and soon she became alone at school and at home. In her distress, if she were to ask for help, she feared she would doubtlessly be compared to the greatness of her sisters and suffer for it. And so, when she was dropped into this antlion pit, Marie couldn't think of anyone in her family to ask for help. To her, what she thought was for the best was constantly backfiring and backfiring. To her, a girl who couldn't even refuse joining the animal raising committee when pressed, how could she escape this malicious trap? And so, in other words, this was basically, even though it's very, very pitiful for her, a natural consequence. Yep, dark, depressing, sad. Ooh. And it has to be an Asian toilet as well. Marie slowly puts on her clothes and once again dons her backpack. And with its weight, she was reminded of the many disgraceful things she was forced to do mere moments ago. And so for Marie, from the moment she adorned the backpack, she felt as though she was being controlled by that man. Why did it have to turn out like this? In this oxygen-deprived air, I idly thought to myself that even if there was a goldfish that could swim in midair, it would have no choice but to stick its head in the water to breathe. Did we suddenly go to first person from Marie's perspective? This is weird. Yeah, it was my fault from the very beginning. I went and did something I wasn't supposed to, and Sensei found out and blamed me for it. That was something very, very wrong. And if my classmates found out, there's no mistake I would surely be bullied again. It was that kind of thing. So when Sensei said it was all right to keep it a secret, I felt very grateful to Sensei. Yeah, I see where this is going. No matter what kind of strange things he might have wanted in return. I've been bullied for a very long time. For now, I'm happy that I'm no longer being picked on, but that's only because my class has found someone else more worthy of bullying than me. And so I thought any kind of compensation would have been easier than returning to being the scapegoat once again. Because the role of the scapegoat was a painful one. And so, from the beginning, I was willing to endure whatever he wanted. If I were to compare it to the sorrow and fear of being bullied in class, listening to Sensei's words weren't hard at all. Aside from calling for me after school, it's not like Sensei ever teases me. Instead, he goes so far as to punish the classmates who do tease me. Yes, even though Sensei forced me to disgrace myself, he was protecting me. And so, in return for protecting me, I have begun to think it's my duty to give Sensei whatever he wants, and I endure it. Feeling guilty about what Sensei wants is my problem, while Sensei himself is always very satisfied with them and even compliments me. So, I've come to endure it, thinking that what I'm doing is good. But I don't know how to stop his desires. The deeds I should have offered up in gratitude to Sensei for protecting me are now becoming an obligation I must perform for him. The occasional after-school relationship gradually began to corrode into other times as well. He'll do things like order me to feign illness so he can take me away during class, or order me to come to school on days off. Until now, school life had been secondary. Now, when Sensei wants me on weekdays and weekends, I must do his bidding, and it's exhausting me. Why am I so dedicated to doing these things? These toils that I've come to endure to protect my tranquil school life. As they begin to violate that very tranquility, I'm starting to believe they no longer serve their purpose. However, there's no doubt Sensei helped protect me from those bullies. Like today, a bunch of boys who wanted to pull a prank with my textbook were all lined up out in the hall for me. And he smacked them with an open palm until they were red all over. Ooh, this teacher's abusive all over, isn't he? He even made them apologize to me. So, I can't think of Sensei as a bad person. Rather, Sensei is a good teacher who helps protect me from the bullies. And so, heeding Sensei's desires is the natural way of showing my gratitude for that. On the other hand, feeling uncomfortable means that I'm starting to lose that appreciation. Is Sensei a good person or a bad person? I don't even know that anymore. Just today, I did exactly as he said. Sensei ordered me to put on a backpack while in my underwear. His order seemed as if he wanted me to thank him for his day's work. And it hurt because I didn't feel thankful. If Sensei didn't protect me, I would probably be bullied in class right now. Compared to that, this is okay. Even though I thought that way, I couldn't stop myself from continuing to cry and sob. Mesomeso. With only the victim's name revealed, the injustice of leaving the culprit's name undisclosed is something only done in newspapers. We're getting some kind of commentary here. So here the name of the man who forced Mori Moriya's unreasonable destiny upon her shall be revealed. Yeah, this guy looks like he comes from the fucking Ushiromiya family. But anyway, just as divulged in the girl's monologue, this man is Mari's homeroom teacher. His name is Yoshihito Kanamori. And again, I'm not going to be able to pretend to read that or discern any additional meaning from the kanji. Young with a slender figure, even in his calm composure, he hadn't lost his humor. He was a popular teacher whom many girls longed for. But that was just a matter of his appearance. On the inside, he crushed the meager desires of these girls underfoot, and he had plenty of them. He was the worst. He once had his sights on a sacred position, and might have been a virtuous man. But the pressure of the real world dispersed his unrealistic dreams. Before long, coupled with the pressure of work and unrewarding days, he began to embrace an irrational anger. Even though he selflessly devoted himself to his work, no one was grateful to him for it. All he had was the trickling of his own meaningless sweat. And yet, there were a lot of people in this world who would stand on his shoulders and sip that delicious sweat. He was already seeing his efforts being rewarded and continued to pile up his hard work. But on the other hand, during times when no one rewarded him, he had to reward himself. Because if he thought about his work up until now, this kind of deviation was justified. And so he began to reinforce his selfish reasoning. And that could only be his unconscious rage. If he hadn't found an outlet for that rage in another person, he might have continued to be a noble teacher. But he found that person. Not only that, she was also one of his own students. So from that point forward, his life lost its purity, and he unmistakably became the worst kind of man. His purpose now when he came to school was not to educate the next generation of girls and boys to bear the future of society, but to amuse his unrequited self by consciously violating the girl to his heart's content. And that was just the starting point of Kanamori's conscious sins. He had a weakness. No matter how much he suppressed it, his desire could not be contained from unleashing his pleasure. And that pleasure didn't need long to take the guilt away from him. The listless morning staff meeting knew no end and went on and on. Fucking hell. Complaints from parents about the quality and differences in each class's report cards. Complaints about the harsh rule of not being able to use towels at the school's pool due to the spread of skin disease. Until as recently as last year, there was an insistent and tenaciously repetitious vice principal who put on airs and obsessively went around making declarations as if he owned the staff room. He is vice principal, well, whatever. During those times, my heart wanted the school day to quickly end so I could call Marie to the usual former school building bathroom. And then I could greatly satisfy my twisted fantasies, because she could become whatever kind of outlet I desired. The pool opening began, and the school-appointed dark blue swimsuits became dazzling miracles. I think I'm just about tired of the underwear and backpack combination. Perhaps this time I'll make her wear that backpack with a school swimsuit. No doubt it'll be a laughably stupid look for her, like no one has ever seen. If I made her prepare for it, Even that kind of ridiculous outfit could become a reality the next day. And the girl who could never refuse anyone would indulge in my fantasies. To control one girl, with just this kind of criminal conduct, I was able to imagine myself as having reached a complete level beyond anyone else in the staff room. Plenty of different philosophies have questioned how humans could elevate themselves. How could I elevate myself as a human? How could I be at ease without being looked down upon by others? These were things I had worried about in my younger days. But the solution tumbled right under my nose: to control someone and to stand above them. By only doing just that, I was able to conquer a complex that had vexed me since childhood. Not only that, I didn't feel like I was being looked down upon. On the contrary, when no students were around, I was immersed in the superiority I felt over my chit-chatting co-workers. But at the same time, as for those fears that should have completely disappeared, I was aware that some stayed in my mind. For today, tomorrow, and even the day after that, I'll probably continue to do as I please with that girl to my heart's content. And yet, for it to continue into next year, the year after that, and even 10 years from now is impossible. Maria, not unlike other students, would soon change schools, graduate. The world she surrounds herself with will change, and before I know it, a time may come when she'll be beyond my control. At that time, it would be better if we could end it cleanly like an estranged couple's sudden breakup, but expecting that was foolish. This man's got bad ideas. What I've come to force Marie to do is a completely excuseless crime. The girl who wants to be released from me always swears that she'll never tell anyone, but that's only while she's under my control and has nowhere to run. If her circumstances change, there's no doubt she'll immediately change that and report me to the police. For instance, how much longer can she remain obedient? People don't submit to the very depths of their souls. Until that day comes when they are released, they can only look to lessen their oppression. Someday, Maria will surely betray me. With that in mind, how could I keep this going for even just one more heart-melting day? And when faced with the end of those days, how could they end peacefully? I began to ponder. The first thing I thought of was how I could extend my power over her after she graduated. How could I control her forever without betrayal? And it's not like our bodies can last forever either. If that's the case, assuming these days have to end, I must think of a way to make them end as quietly as possible. But what resolution would be a clean ending? Since there was no guarantee she would never betray me, how could I end this so I could trust her not to stab me in the back? After following this chain of logic, the resulting solution was exceedingly simple. This answer was overflowing in countless movies, television programs, and the like, and so it instantly came to mind. From this point forward, in my mind, unknowingly, the idea began to bloom that Maria must be killed. At least for now, Marie is obedient. Having discord in her domestic environment, being unable to consult her family, and being a bullied child from the beginning, she has no friends to ask for help in class. Therefore, it's while she's obedient that I should put her away. I came to realize I had in the palm of my hand a moist and detestable sweat. Yes, this was the price. The price for the unforgivable sin of violating one girl as the outlet of my desires. But the way to pay that price was through another sin, and my pile of sins reaches the height of inhumanity. But there are plenty of guys that are worse than I am. Until today, no, even after today, I'll continue to devote myself, and I'll uphold my noble teaching profession better than anyone else. I'll energetically handle teaching homeroom, and as for club advisement and trouble with parents and the like, if someone complains, I'll handle everything and continue on without reward. After all, if I think of all that I've achieved so far, putting aside a crime to this degree, I still can't be considered a bad guy. In this world, the guys who have done well can do as they want, and guys who can't end up always getting used until they drop dead. That's just it. Am I not just teaching the girl who aptly fits my reasoning, Marie Moria, that special lesson? And the guys who don't notice can only spend their lives being controlled by someone. It's natural for them to continue being exploited. Anyway, Marie is still obedient. I'm always calling her to the old building's restroom unnoticed. Perhaps I could change where we meet. I wonder if there might be a way to ask her to go somewhere unnoticed, where there would be no evidence, and absolutely without exposing myself, finally kill her. I'll think it over. I have to come up with a foolproof plan. Although, it's not as though I have to rush my plan out by today or tomorrow, because at least for today and the days after, Marie should have no way to escape from my control. What kind of pleasure shall I indulge in today? Again, I allowed my mind to fill with perverted fantasies. And until the long speech by the vice principal ended at first bell, for a long time, those fantasies continued. Yeah, this guy fucking sucks. They say Mesomeso-san came out. They say they heard it crying, Mesomeso. This is the land of the school's children. And as... this is the land of the school's children. And as it can only be entered by children, often strange superstitions spread among them. When walking through the halls, I suddenly heard that. Recently, I've heard that name around as if it were a new school ghost. A school yōkai is just that. For example, if the science room's skeleton starts to dance in the middle of the night, or if someone sees the moving eyes of the music room's Beethoven statue. Schools everywhere have them, and without a better alternative, they are often introduced in school ghost stories. There are also stories like the school's 7 mysteries. Yeah. I don't really know what kind of yōkai make up the 7 mysteries at this school, but at any rate, it seems like I've just heard about them. It looks like the children are talking about a yōkai called Mesomeso-san. As its name implies, it seems like it's a yōkai that cries Mesomeso. It was a truly childish and simplistic naming. When I moved to hurry past them with that thought of how stupid it was, I stopped suddenly in my tracks. Because then I heard them say this. Yeah, that Mesomeso-san, right? Apparently it comes out of the old school building's guild bathroom. And then, inside the stall, it cries Mesomeso. If you think it might be somebody crying and knock on the door, you'll start to hear it from inside. Mesomeso, Mesomeso. You're out there. Please listen to my pitiful story. Without knowing it, a shiver began to creep up my spine. The Mesomeso-san the students were talking about wasn't a yōkai or anything of the sort, because it might really have existed. In the old school building's restroom, someone had been crying. And when someone asked what was wrong, they answered, "Please listen to my pitiful story." I swallowed hard, and I felt as if needles of ice were driving me to desperation. That wasn't some kind of yōkai. Marie. It must have been Marie Moria. If someone were to see us together there, we might be under some futile suspicion. Like always, after we'd end our after-school rendezvous, I'd leave first, and she would probably leave sometime afterwards. Basically, after I leave, Marie is left alone in the toilet stall. From there, on some off chance a student or someone went and entered the old school building. If they went to hear the girl crying inside the stall, Marie would doubtlessly want to tell them a story. Even so, the student who went there thought it was a yōkai and must have run away. That is quite a coincidence, or perhaps a miracle. Without knowing it, I have avoided a deadly crisis. If that student hadn't thought it was a yōkai and had lent an ear to Marie's story, there's no doubt that right about now, I'd be in a jail cell. But even with that miraculous coincidence, I couldn't stop my cold sweat. Right. But they say if you listen to Mesomeso-san, you must not speak to it. Well, if you do speak to Mesomeso-san, and if you see its true form after opening the door, I've heard then it gets gruesome. Gruesome? They say you'll be dragged into the stall, and after breaking every bone in your body, it will kill you. And so they say don't speak with it, and don't look at it. Scary, scary, scary. Yeah, but people don't normally go to the old building bathrooms. So this is just a good story to get people to go near Mesomeso-san's stall, isn't it? They'd say, you better not go there, don't go there. But then obviously they'll go, and if Mesomeso-san was really there in that stall, now that would be scary. Ha! Without thinking, I was barely able to contain myself from bursting into laughter while listening to that conversation. Someone who had heard Mary Maria's cries made a ghost story. Up until that point, this had been a dangerous miscalculation. But I would never in my dreams have imagined for them to advise going against near that stall. Marie's cries that wanted salvation ironically backfired and drove students away from her. The girls are superstitious, and naturally, they wouldn't imitate this sort of transgression. On the other hand, the boys will really like this idea. However, no matter what kind of reason they might have, the girls' bathroom is such a forbidden place for prepubescent boys that if they were to set foot in it, they would be accosted for it. In other words, Mesomeso-san's ghost story, now more than ever, has driven people away from that bathroom. No, that's probably too optimistic. While almost all of the students might be scared by the ghost story, this school is just too big. There must be at least one student who isn't afraid. And speaking of that person, if he were to tell the students our secret, it would mean my ruin. I must have realized the strain of the situation coming back once again. I told Marie to come to the usual old school building's bathroom after school today as well. And lastly, it might be best if I monitored the situation a bit. I should at least take the time to see what kind of blind spots exist in the halls that cross the old school building's bathroom. If I'm really, really discreet, today should be my farewell rendezvous with Marie. And yet, my stupid male nature. I intended to make Marie my slave. In reality, I'm becoming hers. Every day is already unbearably painful for me, so forcing Marie to help heal that pain at the end of each day had come to the point where I was unable to resist even a single day without her. Although I make Marie call me her master like a pet, in reality I was the one being mastered. For Marie, a day I didn't call for her was probably a day of rest. But for me, because I didn't summon her, I would suffer that day from a pain that went unhealed. And so, while feeling a pressing conscience to not invite her to that bathroom, I also held the contradiction that I didn't want to cancel today's invitation. How will I violate her today? That occupied my thoughts since this morning. If I were to postpone it, there would be no doubt what would happen to my mind. And so, aware of the dangers, I called upon Marie again today. Before long, I won't be able to call her up anymore, so I'll absolutely enjoy her to my heart's content, and I'll make today last forever. Forever and ever. Ah, Marie, Marie, I love you. You and your body, even to the point of madness. I'm in love with it all. Marie. Oh, this is the, yeah, this is the Rikishi laugh, isn't it? Oh, his faces are incredible. Of course, Mesomeso-san's story even reached Marie's ears. Mesomeso-san's story had become the hot topic for the rumor-loving girls of Marie's Class 8. How creepy! I don't go to the old school bathroom's toilet, but now I really don't want to use it. But it's scary. Even if it wasn't the old school building, if I were to knock on a closed stall door, and from the inside heard Mesomeso, I'd freak out. What would you do? Let's say you knocked, and it said something like, Mesomeso, you there, listen to my pitiful story. No! Run away, run away. Just by replying like that, it'd probably kill you by crushing every bone in your body, right? No. While listening to this, Marie was feeling sad. Why doesn't anyone listen to the sorrows of the person inside? Marie also realized that it was probably about her. She didn't remember it well, but earlier she was forced to do something horrible that she had never done before. It was hard for her, painful, and after she had been released, she couldn't hold back the tears. At that time, someone came to the bathroom. She wanted them to help save her from her terrible sadness. She had a feeling that she had said something like that. And so, like it said in that ghost story, that someone on the other side of the door ran away. And that incident suddenly became a ghost story. And she was also suddenly made out to be a yōkai called Mesomeso-san. Even if she wanted to be saved by someone, if they asked to hear her story, they would be killed by having all the bones in their bodies crushed. So no one would dare ask. It was sad. Having her sole act of courage turned into the work of a yōkai by someone's story left her feeling downhearted. But she thought being a yōkai might not have been bad. Because she didn't know when those nightmarish days would end, Marie's heart had already become like ash. This is just so sad. Recently, while waiting for the apartment elevator, she looked down below her, and despite being on the 8th floor, she had a pleasant feeling that the vast asphalt must have been very soft. For someone without family, school, and a place in the world, who no longer knew what tomorrow would bring, would the asphalt truly and kindly bring it all to an end? And so she thought. But death is just a simple escape. Naturally admitting defeat couldn't settle it. If I do, then at least I want revenge against that teacher who toys with me. And yet in my weakness, what can I do to hurt him? I know that all of what Sensei forces me to do is wrong. If I have the resolve to destroy myself, I can expose everything, and I'll surely take Sensei down with me. Sensei recorded home videos of the many acts he forced me to do for him, and he said if she betrayed him, he'd distribute them. If I have the resolve to ruin myself, I can take Sensei along with me. But after ruining myself, probably even just by being alive, many painful days of shame would await me. Between that kind of horror and my desire for revenge, I've thought plenty about both results. If I can't escape no matter how I try, all that's left is suicide. But if there's another way, I don't want to die. Can't I have my revenge without dying? There's no way such a convenient method could exist. If I want to live without any sort of revenge, then today after school, at the appointed time, I have no choice but to go wait for Sensei in that bathroom. Then I thought, I really should become the yōkai Mesomeso-san then. Mesomeso-san is a terrifying yōkai, and it's said that it drags in its victims and kills them by crushing all their bones with its horrific power. If I could attain that power, then surely, I could even have my revenge on that man. That man always treats me like chewing gum. He chews until the flavor is gone. And finally he spits me out and throws me away. He puts on his clothes, tells me to go home, and he leaves me. But if I had Mesomeso-san's power, then I would also chew. And after I ground his bones into dust, I'd spit him out. And so, I wanted to become a yōkai and cease being human. And to stop being human isn't that much different than killing myself. But it wasn't that I simply wanted to stop being human. There was a big difference because I wanted to be reborn into something else to take my revenge. Lately, I've come to understand that's all that's left for me. School illustrates life. For humans who are bullied in school, even after they enter society, things don't change. They just take on the same role again. While in school, humans who can't break away from bullies become unable to escape them for the rest of their lives. And I'm a human who can't break free. Because even if I were to continue living like this, nothing good would come of it. Even if I entered society, I'd be captured by another man like Sensei. And I'd be fated to return to those days once again, unable to break free. While I understood that much, I didn't have the courage to simply choose death. After all, becoming a yōkai, wanting revenge and the like, those were strange ideas, and I couldn't tell if they were positive or negative. I wonder, could I become Mesomeso-san? I wonder, could I join the ranks of the school yōkai? I was truly the Mesomeso-san that everyone was gossiping about. But I wasn't like that yōkai everyone was talking about. Even though I'm Mesomeso-san, I wonder, how could I really become Mesomeso-san? As Marie idly wondered that question, she absent-mindedly wasted time in the library while waiting for the appointed time after school. She must have been talking to herself in a whisper. Even if there were people listening, her voice must have been too quiet to warrant asking if she had said something. Even so, since that whisper received a reply, Marie couldn't help but be surprised. So you're saying you're Mesomeso-san? Eh? This person reminds me of Featherin in some ways. Suddenly, there was a girl in front of Marie. Of course, the girl was someone Marie didn't know. There were more than 10 classes for each grade in this mammoth school. Exchanges and transfers of students were common. Even if they were in the same grade, there were many children she didn't know. This girl looked very refined. That is to say, extravagant. As if she were at a piano recital, the girl had a pristine and elegant figure. She looked like a doll wearing a beautiful dress that had turned into a human being. Of course, the same could be said for her face and hair. It was obvious that properly maintaining them must have taken a lot of time. But even the look in her eyes was like a doll's. They were very beautiful, like jewels. Even so, she couldn't sense warm blood flowing through them. Her hair and outfit, among other things, could be complimented for being doll-like. But as for her eyes, saying they were doll-like might not have been a compliment. By the look in this girl's eyes, Marie was left with that kind of impression. Could this girl be in the same grade, or in a grade above? If the girl were an upperclassman, Marie had to watch her language. Because Marie at least wanted to know what grade she was in, she looked at the name tag of the girl in front of her. But it couldn't be made out, as if the name tag had been blotted out by the rain. Never mind my name tag, I want to see yours. Show it to me? Eh? Oh, I'm sorry. Marie's arm had hidden her name tag, so the girl hadn't been able to see it. And since she had been caught peeking at her name tag, Marie hurried to show her own. A kid from class 8, huh? This school has so many students, so I can't really say I'm familiar with that class. So, yeah, a giggle. The girl seemed satisfied to know that Marie was a student in class 8. But for Marie, the girl's name tag was obscured, and she couldn't read it well. Despite the girl's elegant clothing with her school regulation name tag in an unmissable spot, Marie felt a strange humor to it all. Marie strained her eyes as best as she could and read only the class, but something was strange about that too. Because she had read Class B, even though there shouldn't be any classes named alphabetically. The name tag had this school's format. Thinking it would be rude to stare anymore beyond that, Marie stopped looking at her name tag. Marie Moriya-san? The names of the children these days are getting harder to read. But they can't beat my name. Call me Higanbana, alright? And once more I will state, I can't read that. But I do know that Higanbana is spider lilies. Nice to meet you, Marie. Eh? Yes. Very nice to meet you. A girl called Higanbana. But could it be her first name or last name? Marie couldn't decide. But as far as talking to her one-on-one, there is no need to call her by her first name. Marie also thought there was probably no need to pointlessly remember that name. And then the girl named Higanbana giggled. It might have been because she saw through Marie's doubts about her name. Thinking there was no way she could have sensed something like that, Marie shivered ever so slightly. Well, about what you just said. Are you Mesomeso-san? Or not? Well, that's... Marie didn't really know what would be the correct reply. After all, because she was the cause of the ghost story, with that in mind, there was no doubt she was Mesomeso-san. But Marie wasn't like the yokai the students were spreading rumors about. And so Marie, not knowing how best to respond, must have been perplexed for a time. Higanbana giggled, watching Marie's bewilderment. It was as if she understood even without Marie saying a word. There are a lot of children gathered here at a school this big. Did you know? Yokai gather the hearts of people. So if there's a school with this many students crowding about, then more yokai would gather here than at a normal school. You know, don't you? The school's 7 mysteries. The 7 yokai that reside in this school. Having 7 seats would have been plenty for a normal school. But for a school this big, don't you think that there'd be room for more than 7? So there's been talk about increasing the number of seats for yokai in this school. Fittingly, there's been talk about a yokai named Mesomeso-san. I've been searching, thinking what kind of child it could be. But I'm surprised. Now that I've finally found it, to think it was a human. But I'm not a yokai, that's... But you're Mesomeso-san, right? I don't think it matters that you're human. Among the 7 mysteries, it seems there are also former humans as well. I'm different, however. Yeah, that just basically says it. This is a ghost or a demon or a higher being of some sort. As if she were a beautiful doll surrounded by elegant furniture, Higanbana laughed with a giggle. And yet, at the same time, with the eeriness of a doll that shouldn't move, she giggled. Marie certainly wasn't in a dream world, but she knew. There was no doubt that Higanbana wasn't human, and she had come to choose a suitable new companion, the new yokai Mesomeso-san. There was no doubt. Higanbana-san? Are you a yokai? Yeah. Just straight up, yeah. In class, I'm called the Dancing Higanbana, the 3rd rank of the 7 seats. Once in a while, I'm mentioned by a nurse as well. A doll that for some reason had been left in the infirmary. Have you heard the tale about it dancing alone in the depth of the night? I'm sorry. I don't really know that story. Oh, I see. Well, thanks for humoring me. That was the first time Higanbana's expression dimmed as she frowned. It seemed that having Marie not know her name made Higanbana uncomfortable. But looking at that expression, Marie finally realized that she could talk to her. What kind of person was this girl who introduced herself as one of the 7 mysteries? While it was difficult for her to understand, she didn't seem like a bad person. Higanbana-san, what have you come for? Is it to welcome Mesomeso-san as one of you? Marie timidly asked. Even though she was a strange and called herself a yokai, for her to welcome Marie, who had no friends, into their fold truly made Marie feel a little happy. To become one of the yokai, that meant ending her life as a human. If so, would this yokai called Higanbana kill her here outright with a spell? But that was just wishful thinking. If she didn't even have the courage to take her own life, the days of being that man's plaything would continue without end. She thought it would be much better to be killed with a spell right here, so she could be welcomed as one of Higanbana's kind. So you're prepared to give up being a human then? Yes. Higanbana grinned, and she evaluated Marie by looking her over from the top of her head to the tips of her toes. Around this time, Marie had no doubt. Higanbana had the power to wordlessly read her mind. And after thinking it, Higanbana, as if to reply, "Of course," grinned once again. Well, there's no problem with the will to do it. How suitable. I'll recommend it at our class meeting that you join us as the 8th rank, as Mesomeso-san. I think you'll probably be easily decided. After all, everyone's pleased with Mesomeso-san. Higanbana laughed as if she were in a good mood. But in a blink, even though Marie could still hear her laughter, Higanbana's figure disappeared. With another blink, this time her voice disappeared. And with a final blink, her very presence dissipated away. And so it happened before she could react. Marie frantically searched for Higanbana, but she didn't find her again. Since she disappeared, she understood that Higanbana wasn't human. She felt happiness knowing that she had been invited to be part of that kind of existence. But since she disappeared, there was the terrifying thought that everything that happened just now might have all been a daydream, rather. Wanting to wipe that thought from her mind, she searches for Higanbana. But she can't find her. Because as much as she wanted the yokai's form across from her own, she couldn't be seen through human eyes. Was what just happened real? Or could it have been a desired escape in a momentary daydream? I, Marie, will believe in Higanbana's existence. There was no way that this vivid experience just now was an illusion. I will accept this invitation from the school yōkai. By ending my humanity, I've finally found a way to escape from my days of suffering. Surely I'll attain the power I need to take my revenge on Sensei if I rid myself of this human life. But I also understand that cursing someone digs two graves. If I'm not prepared to lose everything, I can't have my revenge. The resolution to cease being human. The resolution to throw away all of her life up until today. And when she realized that, there was a spark of emotion in Marie's heart. But before she could realize what that emotion was, the needle on the clock signaled that it was time for her to head to the old school building bathroom. And once again, she was expressionless. Returning to an expression paler than Higanbana's doll-like figure, she trudged towards the old school building. She wondered what kind of emotion it was that had set her heart on fire. That emotion's name, resolution. Or perhaps it was determination. She had told Higanbana that she was prepared to cease being human. After all, after that, all she could do was wait for Mesomeso-san's existence to be recognized at the yōkai school meeting. If I were recognized by them, I might be welcomed to live as a yōkai in the school. I'll likely lose my life, and I'll probably have to go through a rite of passage to end my life as a human. In other words, I will soon end my human life. If that's so, since I have nothing left to lose, wouldn't it be alright if I could try just one act of bravery while I've still got my human body? Marie headed for the old school building's bathroom with her head down. But in those clenched fists of hers, she held just a tiny bit of strength. Sensei, I'd like to speak with you. When Marie began to talk like that, Kanamori instinctively knew. His forbidden relationship with her wouldn't continue forever. The day will come when it will end somehow. And he knew that day had finally arrived. Because Marie wanted to end their relationship today, and as he heard her awkward tone, before he had finished listening, he understood everything. But in spite of knowing that a day like today would eventually arrive, he hadn't thought that it actually would be today. And Kanamori was considerably flustered. While he knew that this day would finally arrive, it was clear he hadn't thought of any way to stop it. Are you so sure that you want to say that? Even though I have videos of you and I. Are you sure you want someone to see those embarrassing videos? I don't want someone to see them. But if someone does, then I think Sensei would be in trouble too. Although he had exhausted the utmost cruelty upon her, Kanamori was a teacher who cultivated a large number of students under his observing eye. And so, looking at Marie's expression, he was convinced. Marie had the courage to speak the words that would end it. Moreover, while putting it into words, she was gaining more and more courage in what she had to say. This was bad. The more he was trying to calm her down, the more stubborn she would get instead. But for Marie, who had been that shy and submissive, why did she suddenly have this much courage? It couldn't be. Had she told someone and asked for help, that would be the end of me. The risk of those days leading 2 lives. I should have known the risks more than anyone. But I had forgotten that riskiness by overindulging in those days of pleasure. I had presumed that by using a tape as blackmail, I could make her surrender. The recordings of the deeds I forced Marie to do naturally didn't just have meaning as insurance. They were the only thing that satisfied my own base desires. But conveniently, it became a control to prevent betrayal from her. Tape recordings of the acts became a threat, one that was useful for Marie's particular stereotype. But those tape recordings that threatened her like a gigantic dominating fortress were quickly negated, and the shackles that now held Marie under my control were beginning to fade away from existence. Did you talk to anyone about this or something? No, I still haven't told anyone. If you were to tell someone, Sensei would, that tape. I don't want that, but, well, if Sensei were to destroy those tapes, I wouldn't tell anyone. Kanamori felt slight relief. Marie still hadn't told anyone. My destruction hadn't arrived yet. It's still not too late. I could still find another way. Even though Marie is becoming stronger, those tape recordings were her Achilles' heel. After all, she was using them as an equal condition in exchange for not telling anyone. But, even so, could Marie keep her mouth shut forever? It's fine now because she's still afraid of me. It's fine as long as she just thinks that we're on equal ground. But supposing she gets more courage, if she thought to turn me into the police, I have nothing to protect myself from that. In the blink of an eye, the police would arrest me. And they'd decide that her Achilles heel, the tapes, wouldn't be distributed. First of all, whenever I threaten her, I always keep saying I'll broadcast the tapes. How much time will that really buy me? It's pointless. This isn't as simple as a hidden switchblade concealed in her pocket that would bring my ruin with a single strike. Compared to that, running to the police is far, far simpler. Thankfully, Marie believes that we're on equal ground for now. If she realized the overwhelming difference, that would quickly be the tiebreaker. In addition to that, none of my efforts could protect me. Basically, that balance is already being torn apart. It's just that Marie hasn't noticed it. Today she can deceive me by pretending to consent at this place, but tonight she might phone the police. It's too late, because my control no longer reaches Marie. Yes, when she leaves my sight, it's over. It's not strange that she's already baring her fangs. Even so, Marie still hasn't entirely realized her circumstances. What a stupid brat! That kind of thick-headed stupidity was the capacity of this bullet child after all. To that kind of stupidity... stacked next to my great work until now, my prestigious high school, my prestigious university, and continuing on as a teacher, and before long vice principal, and I who would go on to become headmaster, if she could even follow in my footsteps. I feel a mindless fury burning in my guts. Anyway, if I don't somehow settle this right here and now, I'll destroy myself even before tomorrow morning. Now, while Marie is in my sight like this. Now, while we're alone in this bathroom stall like this. Now, while we're alone in the abandoned former school building. I must do something. If it has come to that, the answer is too easy. And as soon as I had the answer in my mind, the act was carried out by my hands. The rest, a strange sight. My vision blurred, and I felt as if I was seeing the world beyond the raging water's surface. It wasn't just my vision, it was my hearing too, and even my sense of touch, as if under raging water everything became sluggish and muffled. And from that river's edge, my hands dug in, crushing Marie's throat. And that was probably a memory from my childhood. A memory associated with chasing a carp by the brook with my bare hands. Just what were the dreams I had back then? I saw myself as the Prime Minister? I wanted to be an airline pilot? How come those dreams turned out like this? Like this. Even though when I ran around chasing carp and crayfish by the brook were the best days of my life. While Marie had convulsions, she intensely stared into space, even though nothing was in the air. All she could do was foam and drool from her mouth as she began to hang. That's right, stopping Marie's breathing, playing with and killing those carp and crayfish and the like. They all had this kind of feeling. So basically, living creatures, humans, carp, and even crayfish, in the end, there's not much difference. No matter how much I strangled, it didn't happen. In order to crush her core of cores, I gave it every last ounce of strength in my body. And so it happened. The resistance of the convulsing Marie, as if all of her anguish had melted away, slowly began to slacken. And in the end, she exhausted, as if unable to support the weight of her own body. The hands that gripped Marie's neck felt the full weight of her body. Marie no longer moved, but it was obvious she was just pretending to stiffen in my hands. Because if I were to perchance loosen my grip, quickly let go, she'd naturally abide the laws of gravity and tumble to the ground. Marie, with her back to the wall, using the friction of the wall, as if to show one final act of resistance, at last crouched to the ground. That was completely different than falling into a seated position. A person tends to sit so that their clothes aren't in disarray. But from the way Marie sat, I couldn't sense that at all. Her clothes were in disarray, and her skirt was immodestly inside out. Without even acting to fix her embarrassing state one bit, there sat Marie. No, the word sat no longer fit. It was there that Marie had died. The sudden realization that he had committed murder began to nauseate him. But that wasn't horror and self-repulsion. As for what it was that. Like vigorously opening a bag of peanuts and spilling the contents all over the carpet. While looking at that horrible spectacle, he seemed to grumble as if to say, how annoying. Yes, it was particularly bothersome. I'd already went and killed her. There was no point in regretting it now. That said, I don't need to regret it. Marie's dead, and if I'm still living, from now on I can live my life without shame. And for that reason, I have to hide Marie's corpse. But where? I can't think of anything right now. But if I can reclaim my composure, I'll be able to think about it as long as I like. And because it's not like I stabbed her with a knife, leaving any traces that stand out, it's also already late after school. The students have all disappeared. Since I'm a teacher and I'm busy with my own work, what goes on in the school holds no interest for me, much less a murder in the old school building bathroom, because there's no way someone would suspect me of hiding the body somewhere. By then I finally realized I was taking deep breaths. Probably it seemed I wasn't as cold-blooded as I thought I was. Relax, there's no need to hurry. Relax. Huh? At that moment, from the far side of the hall, I heard someone's footsteps drawing near. Because of the peculiar way they were walking, it was probably one of the students. But in the old school building at this hour? And even then, what kind of business did they have with this bathroom? That's right. It's certainly been rumored the yōkai called Mesomeso-san comes out of this bathroom. Most of the superstitious students won't go near it, but there's also curiosity among them. As much as one might threaten them not to go near a place, sure enough there'll be at least one particularly curious bastard who will go there. The sounds of those footsteps weren't coming at a brisk pace. I could tell it was someone walking very carefully and slowly, step by step. And I could even tell they were holding their breath. Because I had clearly imagined this already. In order to put those rumors of that so-called yōkai who comes from this stall, Mesomeso-san, to the test, the time for that one person seeking to test their courage has finally come. It is this student. Will they come in this bathroom? Marie's corpse and I are in this bathroom stall, and the door is closed. So, If they entered the bathroom, they'd instantly know that someone was in a bathroom stall. This is bad, this is bad, this is bad. If by chance they see Marie's body, or if someone knows I'm here at this time, I'm screwed. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? My whole body burst out in a cold sweat. For myself, who didn't shed a single drop of sweat when killing Marie in cold blood, just a single gutsy student who showed up by chance, that alone drove me into a panic. And even as I was panicking, the steps had steadily drawn closer to the bathroom, and now they had arrived. They're tapping, there's a tap, tap. Tap? Those footsteps stopped at the entrance to the bathroom. Knowing that the stall's door was closed, I gulped. And maybe, just by seeing it was closed and maybe they'd think it was truly empty, at any rate, in order to confirm that thought, slowly, it stepped into the bathroom. Slowly, closer. What should I do? What should I do? Slowly, closer still. Please, go back the way you came, please. Go back the way you came. Closer and closer, closer and closer. With seconds feeling like hours, time froze. And then, a knock. They hit it. They knocked. A knock was a confirmation if someone was inside or not. If an answer doesn't come from in here, maybe they'll wonder why no one is inside and climb up to peek from above. Or, easier yet, they'd squat down and peek through the hole under the door. Either way, they'll realize the strangeness of there being more than one person inside. Then, if I don't return the knock, knock knock. But if I do that, won't they just be interested that someone's inside? This is bad, this is bad, this is really bad. I have no choice but to be seen to show myself. Damn it. If I don't go out that door, then I'll also have to silence the stupid gutsy student and send him after Marie. But 2 would be bad, and even though 1 might be tough, and if I kill 2 more, I have no confidence I could get away with it. And this brat's friends might even be waiting outside for them to get back. A scream that couldn't have come from my mouth filled my chest, and in my emptied mind it made me feel as if a firework had sparked in the pure white mist. As if I were no longer myself, I felt I had escaped reality. And when faced with a do-or-die situation, bold words even I couldn't imagine spilled from my mouth. Mesomeso. Mesomeso. That was Mesomeso-san's line. From the other side of the door, I certainly heard a primary school girl scream with a hee that took her breath away. Mesomeso, Mesomeso. You there, please listen to my pitiful story. Pitifully, and I spoke while imagining as if Mesomeso-san, no, as if Marie had said it. Feebly, with a high pitch. The other side of the door was silent. Perhaps this third-rate performance wasn't enough? As my impatience grew, the silence from the other side of the door was broken. It's here! That was undoubtedly the primary school girl's scream. The words "it's here" are commonly used when encountering a ghost. Are they? In other words, the girl who sought to test her courage believed she encountered Mesomeso-san. As if she had forgotten the discretion from which she came, the noise of loud footsteps began to head off far in the distance. I did it! The instant I completely exhausted my wild laughter, and the instant I believed my enemy had been repelled, I acted with lightning speed. I picked up Marie's body and flew out of there, because soon a crowd might rush in this bathroom. It wasn't just one person testing their courage. Perhaps by losing a game of rock, paper, scissors, she was made to come here as a punishment. So if her companions hear, "It's here," they'll probably all rush in here at once. While holding Marie, I turned back to the stall. Like looking at the seats after getting out of a late-night taxi, I wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything. It's fine. Nothing. There should be no traces of any kind. Now quick! This place won't be safe for long. Diving into the first empty classroom before the restrooms, hiding Marie's body in the shadow of a platform, I also tried to conceal my breathing. As I predicted, around 4 girls made an uproar while running through the halls. Should I suddenly reveal myself and go scold those girls for running through the halls? No, that kind of pointless act wasn't necessary. Staying here for now and hiding my breath is a much better plan. Finally, while arguing about whether the girl really saw it or not, those 4 bustling girls in their excitement began to turn back. And for a little while after that, I held my breath, and when I was sure the old school building had returned to a complete silence, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. The area had already begun to get fairly dark. I had used an abandoned storehouse to temporarily store Marie's body, and after returning to the staff room, I pretended to finish work as I waited for nightfall. Since in recent years this school implemented an automated security system, there was no night guard. And so if I waited until the middle of the night, there would be no one there. Speaking of the security system and the like, it may have given the impression of rigorous surveillance with security cameras and whatnot, but it's nothing that extreme. There are just sensors placed all over the school's doors and windows, checking to make sure they're not broken into. Furthermore, they only work after the last person to leave turns them on. And so basically, if I waited long enough, it became my chance to be completely alone in the school. So, with the school completely empty under the darkness of the late night, I dragged Marie's body from the storehouse and took her to an outhouse behind the prefab school building. This toilet was the fairly old squatting kind, where the waste had to be pumped out from a giant septic tank buried underground. Originally, the drainage system should have been changed, but at the same time this prefab was made, it seems they intended to quickly tear down the old school. But since it wasn't destroyed and was always being used, both flush toilets and squat toilets came to exist at the same time in this strange state of affairs. Someone just comes to empty the septic tank sometimes, but it's not like they completely empty its contents. Gross. Much less peek at the bottom. And so if I tossed her inside this septic tank, no one should notice. It might be found someday, but that might be in the future after the body has turned into a skeleton. Covered in shit and eaten by maggots, what kind of trace could they find in those skeletal remains? The most they could think is that she accidentally fell in while playing. I uncovered the drainage pipe for the septic tank. For a moment I winced at the horrible hot stench. Whew! And then I shined a light on Marie's body with my flashlight and checked to make sure I didn't leave any suspicious marks. It looks all right. It's not as if she lost her shoes along the way and left them in the school. Suddenly I noticed something was a little out of place. Where was her right sleeve button? The clothes Marie wore had decorative buttons on the sleeves. Looking at her, her right sleeve should have had one, but it wasn't there, and her arm lay bare. Maybe I dropped the button somewhere. No, maybe she didn't have one on today to begin with. Searching the school for a single button was impossible. Rather than worrying about that, I was aware that I had to immediately dispose of Marie's body, and I did so without hesitation. From within the deep and unusually large septic tank came an echo with a plop sound, and after that somewhat disagreeable sound, it too was replaced by the sound of insects of the night and disappeared. I returned the drain's cover to the way it was before. It's fine. No one knows a thing. No one saw me. I thought as I walked briskly and returned to the staff room. If there was a teacher in the staff room who witnessed it, they'd come question me. While this worst-case scenario filled my mind, it was impossible. The staff room was filled with silence, and aside from the annoying sound of the ticking hands of the wall clock, there was nothing there. After all, I had already checked that all the teachers aside from myself had left the school before I went and disposed of Marie. That was the natural thing to do. There wasn't any need to laugh, but I was exhilarated that the annoying cleanup job was over. and felt like a fulfilling yet senseless laugh. But the cause of my laughter wasn't just that alone. That's right, my quick thinking back in that bathroom. When that girl testing a nerve came and knocked, I thought it was over. But then, pretending to be that Mesomeso-san I had heard about was beyond amazing. That girl will probably spread the news to the people she meets every day starting tomorrow that she met Mesomeso-san. And then the school will certainly say a yōkai named Mesomeso-san exists, and a legend will be born. That meant basically, I was Mesomeso-san. That's right. Leaving no evidence, I accomplished murder and escaped unseen. That meant that I stood above humans in the hierarchical pyramid. In other words, I passed my test as a killer, and now I have surpassed the so-called human stage. And what I earned was the name Mesomeso-san. Yes, I have surpassed human beings. I have become Mesomeso-san. I have become a yōkai. I am beyond humans. I murder humans, and I am feared by them. And even if I am destroyed, the ghost story of Mesomeso-san I will leave behind me will live on in the stories spoken by the students in the school forever. That was as if I had even transcended my inescapable predestined human lifespan. I'm Mesomeso-san. Students, dread me, fear me, and transmit me with your stories. How superb! Marie, when you were alive, you sacrificed your body to relieve my boredom. And in the end, you even sacrificed your life to graduate me from humanity. Small ha. What a swell kid. Oh, this laughter is too much. Mesomeso. Mesomeso. If someone were there to hear it, they would have heard a sad wail as if someone's heart had been torn to pieces. And it could be heard coming from behind the outhouse where Marie's body had been disposed. Of course, it was a sorrowful cry because there was no one to hear it. No, it was a voice that couldn't forgive that there was no one there. Marie's body was now in a vat of filth where light would never shine again. However, her soul had been released and sat down across the vat's lid. What was it that made Marie sad now? Even Marie herself didn't know. It made her sad nonetheless. She had hoped she would have been given her life, only to have been given this sad fate. To be killed without having known anyone in the end. With her corpse tossed in this filthy place, no one would even know about her death. Nonetheless, the feeling the perpetrator felt in the end for her despite the many acts she had obediently followed wasn't even regret or even gratitude, but simply ridicule alone. All of those things tormented Marie. For her, eternity would continue her sorrow forever. Suddenly, the insects were silent, as if telling her someone had finally come. That was someone like she was now, whose existence wasn't human. And Marie, who existed no longer as a human, had already sensed that someone and raised her head. It was Higanbana. Before, her face didn't betray any emotions, but now she held an expression that fit the true meaning of the word emotionless. Whatever emotion it was, if one were to think it might have hurt Marie's feelings, to Marie, Higanbana's cold, emotionless, expressionless form might have been the kindest. Marie might not have yet understood, but this kindness to the dead might have been a non-human formality. My condolences. If you think crying will heal your sorrow, feel free to cry. As long as you understand that those cries can no longer reach anyone's ears, that is... God, the sentence structure in this annoys me sometimes. I thought so. It's like that, isn't it? It would be strange to hear the voice of a ghost, wouldn't it? Higanbana's words might have been harsh, but for Marie, who didn't know the logic of spirits, those words might have been necessary, and perhaps it might have been a kindness to Marie. A cry is a sign that someone is looking for help, because until someone hears them, that person will continue crying. And for ghosts whose voices can reach no one, without realizing it, they continue crying eternally, forever and ever. And when they are reduced to a spirit that cries only for crying's sake, they become seedy spirits who just want their cries to be heard by the living. and because she knew what it was like to be reduced to that sort of existence. For Higanbana, knowing she had to use strict words with Marie, she had to tell her now while she still had ears that could listen. Higanbana-san, with this, I'll be able to become Mesomeso-san, won't I? Higanbana is fine, Marie. And with that, Higanbana paused and stayed silent for a time. During that silence, Marie had a feeling something was wrong. If she was going to let her be Mesomeso-san, then she should say so without hesitation. And yet she didn't say those words. Before you label me as a liar, please listen to me. It's true that I recommended you to be Mesomeso-san. Everyone at the school class meeting gave their approval. They had only one condition. That condition wouldn't have been a problem at the time, but now that condition is stuck in place. A condition? What is it, Higanbana-san? Only one person is allowed to hope to become Mesomeso-san, you see. Eh? Not understanding what Higanbana was talking about, Marie's mouth opened in surprise. But could that be what she was saying? That there was no way of changing a hopeless situation? Her expression began to fill with sadness. When the seat for the school yōkai called Mesomeso-san was recognized, the one who fit the position was Marie alone. Because I went to where you were, I confirmed that you had the will. And since you had the will, and because you alone had the intent, at that time there was no problem for you to become Mesomeso-san. Nevertheless, at the very last moment, a problem developed. Well, what was the problem? A person aside from you has appeared who hopes to become Mesomeso-san. Eh? Because you were here crying with all your might, you didn't hear his voice, right? That man, with the wicked laughter in his loud voice, even reached our class with that cry. That was a very ironic twist of fate. Because to tell you the truth, his voice might have been more intense than your sadness. You know, the man who killed you, that Kanamori. He went and declared that he would become Mesomeso-san. How did Sensei? Right after he killed you. To drive away students that arrived there, Kanamori faked being Mesomeso-san. That turned out splendidly. Being extremely pleased with himself, he believed himself Mesomeso-san. So he just declared it with a yell. I thought such a wicked voice would reach your ears. But because you were busy crying, you didn't hear it, right? For a time, Marie was dumbfounded. She had been violated by that man while she was alive, and even after taking her life, he sneered majestically down on her. And not only that, did he have to snatch away even her life after death? Even in death, can't she free herself from that man's control? It can't be. It can't be. Ooh. Oh God. For a time, all Marie could do was hide her face as she continued to shed her tears of sorrow. There's no need to despair, Marie. There are just two candidates for Mesomeso-san, you and Kanamori. It's already been decided. Mesomeso-san will take the 8th rank among the school yōkai. So now it can't be left empty. Either you or Kanamori, one of you will certainly take that seat. Your odds are 50%. That's a sure thing, right? How is it? And when will it be decided? A poll at the school meeting. We 7 can vote at the school meeting. We're an odd number, so it will surely be decided. Because I'm attached to you, I intend to vote for you. But in our class, there are a lot with wicked natures. It seems there are some among us who think an evil bastard like Kanamori would be suitable for number 8. Indeed, they might have a point. Oh no. Well, if I should lose that poll, what will happen to me? There's no place where as many ripe souls gather other than a school. There is no other place in all Japan where as many evil spirits gather just to feast on the leftovers of those souls. You probably can't perceive them yet, but even this area around this mammoth school is a well-known yōkai gold mine. For someone like you, since they have no respect or control, those ill-natured guys wouldn't pass up an awfully juicy soul like yours. In an instant, they'd rush you and devour you until they've sucked out your bone marrow. Can't you imagine it? In that school building's shadow, or on the other side of the thicket. I've heard those bad ones with quite an appetite have formed groups. Marie was startled, and while she saw what Higanbana was saying, she didn't see anything slip out from the night's darkness. But even without seeing them, she was certain those wicked beings existed. You'll be alright for now. Your spirit is still being looked after by the one and only Higanbana. On school premises, there isn't a fool who would dare attack someone from that school in the care of a school yōkai from the 7 Seats. These sentences are freaking... Not to mention, I'd teach them what cruelty is. Oh, there we go. Higanbana giggled with an eerie expression that was neither flattering nor trustworthy. That should have greatly frightened Marie, but Marie couldn't see it. She was more frightened of the things appraising her that hid in the veil of darkness. Who is more appropriate for the title of Mesomeso-san, you or Kanamori? I'll guarantee your safety until that's decided. But after that, I can't guarantee anything, can I? It's alright. If those guys eat you, or if the Reaper takes you and your judgment is settled in Hades, either way, it's all over. No matter how much you might have wanted to live with that feeble brain of yours, it will all be snatched away in an instant. Either way, see? Higanbana-san is only protecting my existence like this for now. Is that right? That's right. Although after this, I don't know if it's safe to say. What is it? Higanbana, with a cruel smile, put her lips to Marie's ear, and as if to lick her earlobe, she spoke. There are many who think you look delicious. Not only just that group out there, but I do too. Because I think if you don't become Mesomeso-san, before they can sink their teeth into you, I think I'll eat you first myself. What she said couldn't have been just a joke. Respecting the mutual rights of others was logic from the human world. In the world of non-humans, rank was everything. Everything was survival of the fittest. And if Higanbana wanted that, those words told her that she could, now, in this very moment, make it into reality. Thinking that there's nothing to be afraid of after death, that is human stupidity. Even after death, the world is still filled with things to be afraid of. And Marie, who has already once dived through the extremely cruel barrier of death, that reality where she could have lived without excessive cruelty, where she could have known no fear, never came. But Marie reined in her fears and spoke in a gentle voice. If it comes to that, then if Higanbana-san desires that, I think that would be alright. Have you already given up? That's not it. It would be ingratitude. Because Higanbana-san is protecting me, I'm allowed to exist as I am now, aren't I? Because to Higanbana-san, who gave me time to cry for my own death, I think I must be grateful for that. For Marie, Higanbana's reason for approaching her might have even been just to kill and eat her. Even so, the warm words that offered to welcome her among Higanbana's kind was worthy of gratitude. Even Kanamori, who demanded compensation in the form of those immoral acts for protecting her from those bullies, had certainly never offered her to be his friend or companion. Even if Marie didn't put those emotions into words, Higanbana read them. Ha! Higanbana laughs, but Marie doesn't see her expression. If that happens, then your soul will be delicious. To be a suitable school yōkai, you'll need a bit more wickedness and cruelty, you know. That's alright, because I said I wanted to take my revenge as I am now. I'm capable of that kind of cruelty. And with that revenge, if you don't become Mesomeso-san, you'll be in a tough spot, won't you? And even if you have your revenge, it might be just an inconvenience for that man, right? Marie once again began to cry. From that man's shadow, who she couldn't even escape from in death, feeling sadness, bitterness, and rage, all she could do was jumble her various emotions. Even her wail of agony reached no one as it was swallowed by the veil of darkness. Marie, school yōkai's expectations, and the like, didn't matter one bit to the still-living Kanamori. But even so, Kanamori hadn't yet completely cut all his connections to Marie's death. Talk about Marie Moria not coming home last night quickly turned into an uproar. Was it an accident, or did she get involved in some trouble? The last anyone saw of the ever lonely and friendless Marie was at school that day. As for what happened after school, it was anyone's guess. Police were looking for information and posting flyers with drawings of what Marie wore that day on bulletin boards here and there. Making sure not to overlook any witnesses, they posted them all around town. The police even came to question the homeroom teacher, Kanamori. Kanamori said he didn't know what happened after school, and the police departed feeling satisfied. It even became an urgent topic at the staff meeting, and as a precaution in case of a second incident, there was recent talk about after-school groups or bodyguards and the like. At first, those topics made Kanamori's heart race, but after a day or two, he became confident. Because the police investigation hadn't found Marie's corpse, it was focused on what happened after school. He began to feel he had completely slipped away from that line of investigation. He was asked by a child from his class where Marie could have disappeared to, and Kanamori refused as if in jest and said, could it be the curse of Mesomeso-san, I wonder? Oh, of course not. I can't believe I just said that. Let's make this our little secret, okay? As expected, the students took those words all too well. Having her treated as a victim of Mesomeso-san, the school yōkai everyone is crazy about lately, came as an added bonus. In school, the rumors about Mesomeso-san ran wild, and a new school ghost story began to take hold. With that in mind, Kanamori started to believe more and more that he was Mesomeso-san. It was that kind of day. After school, on his way to the staff room, in the middle of the empty hallway, suddenly he fell. When he fell, it was as if something had caught his elbow. It tore his skin and made him bleed. It wasn't a serious injury, but he pressed a tissue to his elbow so it wouldn't stain his shirt. Oh my, Kanamori-sensei, are you alright? You're hurt, called out the vice principal who saw him by chance. Ah, how embarrassing. I must have bumped into something when I fell. I probably just slipped on a puddle a student neglected to wipe up or something. Kanamori said that, even though he knew more than anyone that he hadn't lost his footing like that. While he smoothed things over with the vice principal, he looked at the hall, and he was left doubting that he could have slipped on something. Sensei, you seem to be bleeding quite a bit. It's seeping through your tissue. You're right. How annoying. Perhaps I should head to the infirmary and get myself patched up. You do that. Oh, nurse. Kanamori-sensei seems to have hurt himself. Would you take a look at him? Conveniently, from the other side of the hallway, the school nurse appeared. She looks like a biker chick. What the hell? Oh my, are you feeling alright? Your elbow. The injury itself wasn't a big deal, but he didn't want the blood to stain his clothes. Kanamori thought as much, and he calmly headed to the school infirmary. The inside of the infirmary was filled with the smell of disinfectant. I'm going to save because I haven't saved at all. And feeling the pain from cotton wool soaked in that disinfectant brought back memories of my elementary school days. It was nostalgic. Before I knew there was something greater than being human. In those times, I always felt looked down upon by those around me. Not wanting to be looked down upon, and wanting to look down on others, those times I bottled up my aggression against them. And by looking down on Marie, I finally felt as if I had relieved myself from that complex. I didn't think I wanted to be a killer. But if this purge didn't free me from my complex, for the rest of my life, how long would I have to live in despair? If I thought about it, as for how long I could go on living, if I supposed Marie's life was ended for someone else's amusement, I thought it would be natural for them to go on living, seeking new ventures in life. Like the different links in the food chain. I was the predator, Marie was the prey. That was all there was to it. If I didn't eat her, then in the future she'd be eaten by someone else. And so I ate her early on, and in a deeply compassionate way, reset her existence. Although, even in her next life, she'll probably be eaten again. That girl is just that hard to teach after all. Yeah, this guy's fucking gross. I'm going to save it and leave it for now because my throat is actually starting to get a bit sore. And it's pretty late at night. So I think I'll be able to carry on with work in the morning tomorrow. So, this was Higanbana. I've forgotten the full title. I'll just call it Higanbana. Yes, this was Higanbana. I'll probably continue this another time, but it won't be a very regular thing. But having said that, this seems pretty cool. It's a bit longer than I was expecting. I heard this was going to be like an anthology series of short stories, but this one, I'm not sure how long it's going on for. Ah, well, we'll see. And on that note, back to the title. Yeah, another good Ryukishi work. I always look forward to what that man's doing. Hopefully his Silent Hill game will be an interesting one. And on that note, I think we will leave. I'll see you guys next time.